Hi, everyone. I am here today with a new friend, Joshua Inacio, who I met, or we were meeting for the first time, and we were connected through another friend of both of ours, Homa, who had an interview several weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so I'm going to learn as we go through this interview, just as you all are, which is fun. So, Joshua, thank you so much for being willing. Yeah. Would you tell us a little bit about how you became a healer and a spiritual worker, is what I want to call you? Is that correct?
Sure. I'm looking for a start point here. You know, the paths of life we choose tend to be several things that converge all in one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how maybe I want to explain it now. Because I'm remembering being very young and loving music, not even necessarily playing music, but loving listening to music. Michael Jackson, music I would really feel a lot with. And I grew up in the 80s as well, and that music's very like theatrical and synth-based and so on. And I'm saying this because I could find constancy in that, and I didn't particularly enjoy being young. I'll just say that much.
Yeah.
But I didn't find much reliability in the outside world. But music, I could find that constancy. It's a reliable place. As well as all of that, both my parents were interested / involved in spirituality. My father was a medium.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that until only a few years ago. My mum was the woo-woo one. And so she was the one with the crystals and taking me to psychic fairs. And she was the one volunteering at the spiritual healing circles and things like that. So it was in my late 20s that after I'd studied a bit of Reiki, and I started just putting everything together. I was making music. That was coming very, very freely. And that was the first thing I did. I made music for people to meditate to. In my early 30s, and by that point I'm living in this country, the only way I can explain it is people just started giving me stuff. Bowls, tuning forks, didgeridoo that's over there. It just started coming to me, and I just put it together. And this is by the way after like 20 years of making music and listening to frequencies and observing how I feel and how I don't feel and what they do and what they don't do. And I just got started, and my process has evolved a little bit over the years, over the last 10 years. But that's basically how. And I've skipped huge chunks out there, obviously. but what I will say is, you know, in the early years of doing this work professionally and working primarily with sound and vibration, and this is kind of a little bit before everyone was, because now everyone is. But you know, in those days, I was getting to see that you can clear stress and anxiety, even some depression, very quickly. I'm not saying it doesn't come back, but you can clear it very quickly. Seeing that things like blood clots can be shifted that way. Things like thyroid imbalances, so you can get at some of that, some types of back pain. So that's what I was working with in the early years. Then, for some reason, and it was all in the same month, people would start asking me just questions about their life, and I was already giving readings and so on and doing that because I just like that. I was really interested in that stuff. Always have been. I learned a lot from tarot and so on. And so I started giving readings as well because I was seeing that, well, if I actually want to be of support to someone, if someone comes to see me, if I want to be of support to them, then I need to have a wider scope than just their vibrational body. I need to be able to support their mental and emotional body as well. So that's kind of my practitioner self there. Somewhere in all of that, channeling showed up as well. I was actually trained by a couple of channels, but it didn't show up for me then. I learned a lot about consciousness, and spirit and spirituality, but it didn't show up for me then. So I started channeling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do believe if you've got a gift, you have a responsibility to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that gift is, and it's important to use a gift because you then understand, you get shown more about it the more you use it.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's other things, but that's
Yeah.
how's that for a start?
That's lovely. Well, my first question that I want to ask is, did you have one of those, it's not really typical, what's the right word? Did you have a moment where you thought, or you look back on now as this is when I began to awaken?
Hmm. You know, it's funny because I don't have that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I know people do, and there have certainly been some bigger, brighter moments.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember being, it's about 4 or 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and just being frustrated because, and I called it God at the time, but I would be frustrated because I was like, my dad was annoyed with me because my books would always be on the floor. But I'm like, if I put my books on the shelf, God's just going to shove them off, right? And that was happening. I never saw it happen, but I knew it would happen. And so being aware of things like that, the word spirit is used in the household.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my family is Jewish, but you know, the word spirit was used fairly freely.
Mm-hmm.
Then having experiences like I would have nightmares for 2-3 weeks, which sounds very serious, but if I told you what I had nightmares about, you would be laughing for about 2 weeks. So never mind that. But so my mum had someone come in and do a space clearing, a clearing of the house, and that night I slept, no trouble.
Lovely. Mm.
So it's continual experiences like that. There have been some louder experiences, as it were. I even had one a couple of months ago that was just phenomenal, incredible. But it's been gradual. It's been gradual. There wasn't any. There wasn't some of the big explosion moments that I'm sure you talk to some people and they have.
Yeah, or a giant Kundalini awakening or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's amazing to imagine growing up in a home where it's just part of normal everyday life to
Well,
have these conversations.
I'm not going to overblow this. I did live in a very normal house, very normal parents. Now, my kids have to grow up with me, then that's a whole different story. But what I'm saying is the word spirit was used.
Mm-hmm.
It was used. There was, and it wasn't it wasn't pushed on us. It wasn't anything like that. But it was just an understanding that there is an intermediary between us and Source, as it were, whatever that might be. And so in that respect, it wasn't unusual. Now, I didn't go talking to my friends about it. I also didn't agree with most of what my mum was, or didn't understand most of what my mum was telling me. But it didn't sound too off either. And I remember things like walking through the science laboratory when I was 7, and I for some reason I knew to go and do something to my shoulder to make it feel better. And I now know that was a past life ability to just go do that. But and so, you know what? Yeah, there was one. The first time I experienced someone else channeling, it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful. And I remember having the thought and feeling like I have been waiting for this all my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you? 10?
I was 29.
Oh, okay. It was later on.
I'm 42 this year. I was 20. I was 28 or 29, losing track now. and I just had that feeling. I've been looking for this all my life.
Wow. Do you remember, well, you probably do, what was being channeled, or who was
Oh,
being
the
channeled?
guide, the spirit guide that's coming through, still very much works with me and my family. A guy
Mm.
called Red Feather,
Mm.
and interesting that comes up because there are some of my friends that live in that Longmont area. We've gotten to drive up to Red Feather Lakes,
Oh.
and that was a really special moment for me. To go there, but that introduced me to several other guides and also to Archangel Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'd say that was quite a switching on moment, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like there was nothing before that.
Correct. Yeah. It sounds like you had maybe you were even awake very, very young. You didn't.
Mildly aware.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Okay. So, what kinds of challenges have you encountered along the way? Because we all, especially when we're very sensitive and attuned.
Yeah. Well, going back to what late childhood, maybe certainly the sort of things people go through, like bullying,
Mm.
sensitivity, things like that. Not wanting to walk into certain rooms because you could just feel something in there. There's that stuff. Then I worked in a family business for several years and did good work and so on. And I knew at some point it was time to change, time to shift that. And going from being in England and doing that type of work to a couple of years later in another country doing completely other work, that wasn't the easiest shift I've ever made. I'll
Yeah.
say that much. There are some other challenges like this is a good one. This was about a week before our second child was born. My wife had been on bed rest for 2.5 months,
Mm.
and a friend of ours who also channeled, said that actually, again, Red Feather wanted to speak to us about the third child.
Oh my.
and and so we went there and there was this cyclical conversation going on. I said, I don't think we can do it. I don't think we can do it. And the spirit was very lovingly, gently and kindly explaining that while there might be a bit more stress involved, there would also be the composite amount of grace
Mm.
as
Mm.
well. And I just couldn't hear that because I couldn't hear and receive it. I couldn't, we all had let's just call it a bit of a detour for about a year, 18 months that followed that. And we got back on track, but
Mm-hmm.
challenges like that as well. And there's other stuff, here in the Midwest, and I don't get on the loud hailer and tell people what I do. My neighbors don't know what I do.
Right.
I go to a cocktail party or a wedding reception or something like that, and I'm a little cautious about how I explain what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Even I don't even talk about channeling very much, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Despite how many times I've just mentioned it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it on Facebook.
Mm.
And yeah, that's a few.
Do you perceive that to be the most, the thing that people have the most discomfort around, the channeling?
Channeling. The most preconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 5-6 years, I've done a lot of work with different churches and so on, New Thought churches,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just careful. I'm just mindful of that, because the people that follow what I do understand and kind of accept what I do, and that's fine. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. When you're working with a center or a church or something, and they've got their congregation that enjoys and follows what they do, and I think that's something to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean it, respected, and channeling is not to everyone's belief system, and I've
Mm-hmm.
never been, and I don't think I'll ever be the person to push that.
Mm.
I will offer channeling and I will stand up for it, but I'm not gonna I'm not going to push it.
I'm going to force it down people's mouth. Throats. Yeah, I get that. I'm curious. I just wrote on the side here, question mark, light language.
Okay, light language. Something that I haven't done for a while. I'm actually very. Where did the question come from? Okay,
I don't know.
so a lot of the there's a lot of the work I do that I don't really talk about because I don't truly understand it well enough to talk about is breath work and breath work techniques, and let's call it light language, by which I mean certain applications of vocal toning. Yes. When I go and do what I'm going to do in our last chunk of time, Jamie, I'll probably be doing some of what light language is. Now, let me just do my best to explain, and I'm totally going off off the top of my head here. So, because I don't like to hide behind vague terms. Okay, so what is the human body? The human body is a vessel. It's a vessel that energies can come through and that can magnify them. And that happens in any and every facet of society. If we elevate our rate of vibration just a little bit, connect with higher energies just a little bit, they will use an attuned vessel to bring certain loving energies into this dimension. This being third and fourth, fifth. That's really, I feel, the scope of what we can tangibly connect. So, the closest example I can give you of what light language is, and we've all heard it a trillion times, is birdsong. So, the human voice box, larynx, teeth, tongue, and lips, is a phenomenal instrument, and we can make all sorts of sounds with that, with the embouchure, with the shape of the tongue, and so on. And some of those, I'm doing my best to explain this.
You're doing great. I'm following.
You're very kind. Let's just say spirit vibrates up here, we vibrate down here. And so there want to be a meeting. There wants to be a meeting or a connection of sorts. And so spiritual energy is fluctuating by its nature. It's sporadic in its nature, and it's continually changing, I would say, waveforms. And there is a perfection to that. There's a perfection to that. And so that can translate through the pineal gland into the muscles of the mouth and so on. And through that will come a sound, using all of this apparatus to transmit that energy into the form of sound. And we call it light language because it's using the same vessel that speaking would happen in. It's light language because it is high frequency, but it's not a, shall we say, language that I could communicate to you and you would hear it and communicate back to me. It's more of a transmission. That's the best I can do.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's been coming up a lot. It's a question that I've had.
Is that something you do?
Intuitively, but not on purpose. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not my focus or my aim. And I am actually curious if it can go beyond transmission and can actually be a communication between two people who are able to bring that in.
Well, I had a cool experience back in December. Where was I? It was in Atlanta. And I was channeling for a group. And someone came and sat next to me, and I'm channeling at this point. Surprised I'm talking about channeling so much.
Interesting.
And they asked, the person asked Spirit that was coming through me, the person asked about light language and to understand it better.
Mm-hmm.
And Spirit asked them to start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my body started doing it too. And there was this really fascinating, like, I don't know, uh, dovetailing and dancing of sounds going on, which isn't quite what you were talking about, but it was cool anyway.
Yeah, like birds singing to one another.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe the birds are doing it. We can too. I don't know about you, but I've had all these memories of much different ways of communicating. And I find this form to be more limiting than other forms that I have been in. Yeah.
Yes. It's not, I don't think it's exclusively that we've had past lives and can do certain things. I think it's in millennia past, even the magnetic frequency of the planet was different, and different things would happen, and the constitution of the human body was different as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is this what you thought we'd be talking about today?
I actually came in quite open, I must say. So.
Good. Lovely. So so it sounds like you do a lot of really different work, depending on what is called for. And
it doesn't feel that different to me.
Yeah.
It's not like I do channeling readings and trade on the stock market. It's everything that I do, I feel connects up in some way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you work now? One-on-one, in small groups? What's typical?
Well, I'm not going to be traveling and doing in-person groups anytime soon. That's my feeling, my choice. And interesting you asked. It's been quite a busy week. So I've done several one-on-one sessions, and that's readings, as I've been doing for years. Some distance healing as well. Sometimes a bit of both. That's usually a good combination. But just to look back at this last week. So on Monday nights I do readings on Facebook Live. I just get on live and do tarot readings for people, type questions, and it's a very busy hour.
Yeah.
And I'm ready for a cup of tea at the end of that. I did another 2 of those types of groups, Tuesday and Wednesday, but that was actually on Zoom like this, so I could actually talk back to people. Because I'm just looking for new ways of doing group work, as it were. Last night, I did an attunement group, also through Zoom, about 6-7 people, and what I'm doing there, I'm sort of raising the energy here first of all, a grid of energy here, and then working etherically on each person, and that's a semi-channeled state as well. So. Yes, and I'm remembering now. I did a sound healing work on Facebook Live on Wednesday as well. Been a busy week, Jamie.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot. So online work is easy for you. You're familiar, and this is not new for you.
I've been thinking about it for quite a long time as well, because the sort of work that I had been doing, particularly with sound and so on, it doesn't translate very well to doing online. So it's something I've been giving a lot of thought about, particularly because I'd be away from my family for last July. It was about 3 weeks, and that's a long time when you have young kids.
It is, yes.
And I trust in what I'm doing. I believe in what I'm doing. I know I should be doing it, and I had and have and do think a lot about, well, how can I work more in this way and reach people and connect with people in this way.
Lovely. So I'm curious. Every person who does healing work has someone who they go to. when they need something. How do you know when you are in need of something? Do you have anyone you can go to, or do you
You know,
mostly work for yourself, with yourself?
I mostly work for I mostly do work on myself. I came to a realization about 2 years ago that I had to preemptively be doing clearing work on myself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I would get very full, and if I got full, then destructive things would happen.
Mm.
Maybe I'm being a bit excessive here, but I would get overtired, or I'd get very grumpy, or I'd get very, very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and it got to the point I realized, well, I needed to be doing something preemptive, because something would trigger me at some point during the day. I have a long day. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I'm self-employed. Enough things already will set me off. So, I, as a practice, at least every other day, I'll do writing exercises to clear energy, stuck energy out of my system.
Mm-hmm.
That does most of it. I've actually just started some work with a friend who, because I said to him, look, I just want to get into some of the deeper stuff. I think I'm fairly good at clearing away the topsoil, but I want to get a bit deeper, as it were.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's really all I'm doing at the moment. You know, as you can probably attest, when you do healing work on someone else and you're a vessel for that, you also get something, because you have to. So I tend to do quite well on some of the days when I'm doing healing work, because you have to be in a certain state to do it.
Yes.
You have to get yourself into a certain aligned enough state, shall we say, to do it. And I mean, I'd love to be getting more massages. I'd love to be at the chiropractor a bit more often, but it's just not been happening.
Yeah. How old are your kids? Are they still really little?
Youngest is 4.5. Middle is about to turn 7. Oh my God. And eldest is 9.
Yeah. Oh, so they're all school ages.
Yes.
Are you homeschooling right now?
Yes, we are.
Are you the teacher?
Yeah, me and my wife are the teachers. I'm teaching math, a bit of writing and reading, and any just random stuff that happens during the day.
Lovely.
Yeah, just started teaching my eldest some piano.
Oh, nice.
But they've been doing really well. They've been doing really well. The school that that they had been at actually has had to close now. It's a shame.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame. And we had been leaning towards homeschooling in any case. So this isn't our first go at homeschooling, I'll be honest with you. But I think the art to homeschooling is, don't try and do it the whole day. Don't try and pretend your home is now a school, because no one wants that.
That's true. Yeah, there's got to be. I can see that. Yeah, but you already experienced at it. It sounds like, or you've had some experience. Yeah, you're gonna have like a channeling class.
Well,
third period.
I felt for several years now, like, if I think of everything I can offer the planet and humanity in my whole life, like the 3 kids are 75% of that.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't really feel like teaching them channeling. What's the point? They're way more evolved than I am. and they'll do so much more. Jamie, were you into any of the Marvel movies?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ever see Iron Man 2? Right. And there's that lovely scene where Tony digs up the old archive footage of his father, and his father, with scotch or brandy or whatever it is, he walks up the camera and he says, "Tony, you are my greatest creation." And very touching. But that's how I feel. so I feel like I feel they need to be taught values.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is important. But spiritual stuff, I don't know.
No.
I don't think they need it.
No. Like my kids, I have a 12-year-old and an almost 9-year-old, and they're so gifted naturally. There's
Right.
nothing I really need to teach them. I can't even believe someone made me their mother half the time. Like, how did this even happen? Yeah. Anyway, well, would you like to do this offering?
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me just explain what I'm going to do.
Great.
I will, I'm just going to turn this the other way.
Mm.
Okay. So, right. I'm just going to tip this up so you can see it, all right?
Okay.
Are you seeing this? Can you see that?
I can, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what that is, Jamie, that's a looping station.
Okay.
Because I don't know why I've always been interested in it, but I've always been interested in beatboxing. And if this were a whole other conversation, I'd be doing that now. But what it serves really well as is you can layer harmonies very easily. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do, I am going to do work with sound. But instead of just playing crystal bowls and stuff you've seen a trillion times, if you imagine if you wanted to build a building, construct a building, you'd need to put up scaffolding first, right? Mm-hmm. And then you build the building around that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do with that is create like a grid of sound. Okay. And I don't know how it's going to come across here, but at least you'll see kind of how I'm working. Build a grid of sound. And that, as it were, superimposes it on itself around the vibrational grid of the human body. That makes it easier for the human body to elevate in frequency, because it kind of leans because you can kind of relax and rest into that. I don't explain this very well, but it's creating a geometry there. And that makes it easier for the geometry of the human body to join and then raise. Okay. Excellent. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by just recording the sound of the bowl, and then I'm going to do the rest with my voice, and there may be some light language in there as well. Mm-hmm. Lovely. All right. And try and keep this to 15 minutes. Okay.
think that came through very well. Yeah. Mm. So much through my heart, just opening through the heart. It's very beautiful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Did you have any sense of what that, I want to say was geared toward, but that's this very strange expression, what that
No,
was for or something?
it's I'm careful when I go there,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, because uh, every every millisecond in this reality
Mm.
is there are trillions upon trillions and trillions of things happening. It's a
Mm.
completely unique moment each time.
Mm-hmm.
So to put a human mind behind that and say this was for that,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost childish.
Mm-hmm.
um, so, but to try and answer your question, it's in some way to support the vibrational congruence of whoever is going to watch and listen to that.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
In truth, it's whatever it needs to be for the
Mm-hmm.
current moment. And
Yes.
I'm saying that, and forgive me if it sounds evasive, I don't mean to.
No, I
It's more,
understand.
it's more that those that love us, as it were, across the other side of the veil, look for occasions and opportunities like this to funnel black grace through. And hey, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I align with.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, I'm sure that I feel that anyway. That anytime I listen to this, it would be a very new experience. Something new would shift and change. Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah. Do you
Jenny,
ever
thank
get
you very
in?
much.
You're welcome. Do you ever get anyone to play with you, to create
Well,
with you?
you know, it comes up from time to time, and I always have to very sheepishly say no, because with you could get two bowls looking exactly like that, but but even a few hertz either way, and it's a cacophony. And
Yeah,
and no, it comes up from time to people say, I got some bowls, I got some chimes,
yeah.
and it's and it's like, do you understand how music works? um, and I didn't know, I discovered this quite early on. I had a piece of music and I was out at a fair somewhere and someone said, oh, I've got my didgeridoos tuned to E. I was like, play along, this is in E. And it sounded dreadful.
Yeah.
So when I had the opportunity to just test a few instruments and sounds and pitches with people and with what they have, then it's very and if something works, because music and so on, it's mathematics.
Mm.
It's either right or it's wrong.
Mhm.
It either fits and connects or it doesn't. So when it fits, it's like yay.
Yeah.
I love to work with people then, but I don't like to do the scattergun.
Yeah.
I don't. I do like to explore by myself though,
Yeah.
and the range of the possibilities that technology has opened up
Mm.
in the last, gosh, for me certainly 20 years.
Mm.
It makes it very exciting because I was like, well, if I've got an instrument, I can go to my computer and I can shift the pitch and tuning of something to that, and I can make a piece of music to that, and that's very exciting to me.
Yeah.
Or like I did something here the other day, worked with a vocal piece, and then went to the synthesizer and joined with it, and just added a whole other element to it.
That's
I'm
lovely.
sounding very antisocial.
No. It sounds like you're exploring what your voice and your gifts are doing, and you're right. It is. It's terrible to hear two crystal bowls playing together. The
Well,
same one.
if they're off, if they're not congruent
Yes.
harmonies, it's, oh God. But if they are,
It's bad.
It's if the harmonic beats match up, it's delightful, but not always the case.
That's true. So what is the easiest way for people to reach out to you, connect with you, even work with you if they want to?
Yeah. Easiest way is probably through Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Like We Connected. Most of the work I'm doing at the moment is on my other Facebook page, which is it's called Joshua Inacio Connection and Alignment.
Okay.
So if someone search for that, or
Connection and alignment. I'll put a link in.
yeah,
So people can easily find you. Great. And there's booking link and all that through that.
that's in there.
Awesome. Lovely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very
It was
much.
really, really fun. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm going to go sit and meditate now for a little while. Yeah. Thank you so much.
God bless, Jamie. Thank you so much.